there gamers, welcome back to the Board Game Co channel, and today we have a preview of One Piece Dawn of Liberation. Hey there gamers, it's Professor Meg here, and welcome back to the Board Game Co channel. Today we have a preview of One Piece Dawn of Liberation by Kesco. Now this is a sponsored preview. This is also a prototype copy in front of me, so all rules, components, and things like that subject to change. And this is a current crowdfunding campaign, so you can check out the link down below for everything that they have planned. Now, before we do get into the preview, if you'd like to see exactly how this game plays, there will also be a gameplay on the channel between Alex and I. Not between us, because this is a cooperative game, so we are facing off together, but you are able to check that out. So One Piece is going to be a game where players are cooperatively trying to accomplish different acts, culminating in a final boss battle. So you do have these actions that you're doing as your different crew members, and you are having your ship captains as well as your crewmates. You have these different goals that you're trying to accomplish, but overall there are different missions that are on the board that players are trying to work through to progress them in the story, not only to the next act, but then finally Act 3, where you are going to have that boss battle. Now, here on the main board, you can see that there are these different regions that are all numbered, and those are going to contain the story missions that you're trying to complete. So you are going to have these missions where you are trying to accomplish certain objectives, and you're going to do that by using the actions available to you, not only for your captains, but also your crewmates that are going to be supporting them. So depending on the number of players in the game, you're going to be running either 1 or 2 captains. So this is currently set up for a 2-player game where you would have 2 captains each, and then you'll have your crewmates down below. In One Piece Dawn of Liberation, the pace of play is going to be pretty snappy, where you're going to start off with the enemy phase, where you're going to roll some dice and spawn out pirates on the board, go through any boss abilities that might be happening, but then players are going to have their phase to go through all of their different actions. So you do have a bit of agency there where there's no particular turn order. Players can choose who's going to go and act next, as long as all of your heroes then get to act, and then you will move on to the end of the round. So you're going to continue that general pace of play while these different pirates are going to start coming out and populating on the board, but you know that you need to work toward these particular missions before time runs out, because there are pirate die, and if those do run out for you on this board, that's going to progress you to the point where you're having that final boss encounter. So that can be quite scary. You don't want that to happen, and you want to be able to accomplish these missions instead with what they're requiring. Now, taking a look here just to show you what the Act 1 story missions would require, they're both requiring lore, which is going to be this track here. It's something that you're able to gain and then spend, and the first time that you hit the 20, you're actually able to gain a red scabbard. Now, those are going to be things that are going to give you a bonus, and it's going to build on itself as well. So these are things that players are going to be gaining as rewards for different things throughout the game, but you're going to flip them over, and as you can see, this one is a food, but the next one is going to be joy, and when you would get that joy, you'd actually get 2 instead. So it is going to build out as you are uncovering these, but before we get too ahead of ourselves, I am going to go over the player board and explain your different actions before I explain things like joy and what you might want out. Now here, looking at that mission, as I said, it does require the 10 lore, and then it would also require 4 food to be spent, as well as 2 weapons as resources and a stash action. So with that, I am going to look over at the player dashboard over here and go through the different actions, because stash is something that you would have to do. So taking a look here, you're going to slot an action for your captain each time you're taking a turn with them, and then you're also able to boost their actions with crewmates to add additional dice to those checks. So looking at the top here, there is strength, which is going to allow you to attack the bosses or defend. Now when defending, it's very straightforward, where that's how you're going to be taking these pirates off of the board. So you are going to be rolling for that when you're taking this action here, but you're going to use that to try to take these off, where as you can see, we only have 2, so you have pretty good odds for that. So when you are rolling to make a check with your captain, we'll choose to use this defend action, and then we'll also support it over here with a produce with our crewmate. So we will slot all of that over here, and to use this defend action, as it is a red action, we will be rolling 2 dice plus our captain die, so that's going to be all of these dice here. And then with our crewmate that is supporting the action, we're going to get an additional die. So we're going to place all of those in there and then try to get some successes. And looking there, we have a success on each of these. As you can see, that would be the blank side. And then on your captain die, you have a single, or you also have doubles available. So we did get a 4, so that would have been 4 for us, but as you can see, there are only 2 on the board, so we will remove those. Now for the boss action, that's going to be extremely similar, except you're doing damage directly to one of the bosses, and you have to be in their area. So first, this character would have to be where this boss is, which is Jack, so we would have to move over here. And when you move, you can move to one adjacent region. So we would move, and then instead we would have been able to use that roll to attack for the boss, dealing 4 damage to them. Now, looking down here at the assist actions, defend, this one is going to be similar, where it's going to be swapping out just for 1 because it is a crewmate, and produce is going to be producing a food or a weapon. So I will show you what the captain produce looks like, because again, that's going to be rolling with your dice, but down here, that's going to be just producing 1 in the area that they're in. So now looking over here at cunning, this is where you're going to hopefully be increasing this lore for you to be able to spend. So for you to discover and use this action here, again, you would roll for that particular stat. So if for whichever character we were using, if we were using this one with this crewmate here, we would have the 4 dice and roll something similar. And then for what you were rolling, you would increase your lore track here. So if we did roll a 4 in that instance and we had nothing, we would put this on the 4. Now, with the Discover action, you're able to draw a petal from this bag as well, and they're all going to be special things, but there's actually some tiles that are bad for you as well. So I am going to peek and look to try to find one. Here they are. So there is these smile fruits that are bad, where this is going to add a boss during the next enemy phase, but then you get to discover again, so at least you do get to get a different one. But just to give you an example of, oop, I grabbed 2 of those smile fruits, but just to give you, oh my gosh, just to give you an example of what some of these would be, here we have Izu. You may ignore the fight condition on a boss this turn. This one is Minitomo. You may exchange any resources in your inventory for any other resource. And we also have here Immediate. You can add a food or a weapon or destroy 2 pirates anywhere. So you can see where these petals are also going to be very cool for you to be able to use. And it's one of those things that you are banking down in the lower boards for you to be able to have a turn during the boss fight as well. And this is the stash action, which is what players are going to use when they're able to accomplish these missions. So that is catching us up to what we would want to do here. And when you do that, you have to pay all of the requirements, meaning that you would need it here in this region between the inventory of the character doing it, as well as what is already just kind of hanging out there in the region. But you would use the stash action to then take those items and place them down here and resolve this. So here you can see this would allow players to recruit law, but you would also put the things that you paid for that down here into this area, working you toward the Tobiropo. So this is going to come into play during the final boss battle, and I'll get into that in just a moment, but just know that when you're stashing, this is where you're going to be putting those different resources. Now, down here in the assist, as well as up here in plunder, we have the recruit action, and that's how you're going to be summoning your samurai. Samurai are going to help you defend areas, but they're also going to be things that you may need to pay for. For example, down here, to be able to do a prison break, you need 10 of them. So there are different things that are going to require them, as well as the goals that are for the different characters that you're playing with. But you're going to either recruit for 1 down here when you're using it as a crewmate boost ability, or when you are plundering, you're able to do it, and that is when you would be rolling again to determine how many you would get. So in this example, if Chopper was the one doing it, and if they were not supported down in this area, they would only be rolling 1 die plus their captain die for that action. So you can see we're helping with certain actions, as well as using captains that are good for those actions is going to be very important. Now, again, we already went over produce, but produce, you would be rolling and then placing out that many resources areas depending on your results. And then down here for these boost actions, defend everywhere is going to be swapping one out when it's with your crewmate. But this lore is just gaining a base 2 lore. So this is a way for you to be able to gain even more lore. And that's going to really come into play because in the future, as you start recruiting more and more crewmates, you're going to have additional crewmate actions. So where you may be supporting your captain in the beginning with the crewmate that you have, you're going to have more and more flexibility with the actions that you choose to use as you gain more crewmates. And finally, as you can see here, you're also able to do an additional stash action over here, so your crewmate is able to be the one to do so, but in that instance, they would not be rolling and increasing the lore track. So now that you understand a bit more about the player board, I'm going to talk about the pace of play of the rounds. So as I said, players are able to take their turns when they see fit as long as that hero hasn't acted yet that round, but there's an enemy phase before it's the player phase, so I'm going to show you what that looks like now and how these pirates are going to start popping out all around the board. So to start the enemy phase, we will roll these dice here, and that's going to do a few things for us. One is going to move the Kaido wall, but the others are also going to place our pirates for us. So we're going to put those in there. We'll allow that. And where this is moving 4, you're going to move this dial on this track, and it does always stop on red. So with the 4, it would go 1, 2, 3, 4, and add a pirate die. So as I said, once you have no pirate dies left to add, that's going to trigger your final boss battle as well, but you're going to be able to add that die, and this will be rolled in as well. And we have a 4, a 4, and a 5, meaning that they are going to be placed in those respective regions. So here we have a 4, and a 5. So they are placed out like that. Now after this, there's going to be any enemy phase effects, but this being the first round that Jack is in play, this is not going to happen. But then normally on future rounds, if he was not taken out before this phase would be happening, his ability is move Jack to the next region in numerical order, place 2 pirates, and destroy 2 samurai in that region. So where his marker here is currently in the first region, he'll be able to move, destroy our pink samurai, and place out some pirates. So you can see where that can become very dangerous during this enemy phase. Now after that, players are going to have their phase, but then after that, at the end of the round, if these pirates have not been taken care of, they're actually going to start damaging players. So you have your joy track up at the top, and as it increases, you're going to have some benefits, and you do not want it to decrease. And one of the ways that it's going to do so is if pirates are left unchecked. So if they do have samurai to fight off against, they're going to start taking out your samurai and killing them. But if they are there alone in a region, that will start affecting your joy track instead. Now, all of the characters are also going to have special goals where players are going to be working together to try to accomplish these to increase your character's abilities. So you have 2 sides on your character card, and you're going to be able to flip that over to an enhanced side if you're able to meet your own personal goal. But this is something that other players are going to be able to help you with. So for example, you might need to have 3 food in each region, and other players can help you generate that food and transport it around to help you upgrade your particular character. So that is something that players are going to be doing it together, as well as gaining these different crewmates, because you are going to start recruiting people throughout going through these different missions. So your team is going to grow larger and larger, meaning that you're rolling more dice when you're supported for the different actions that you're doing. So you are going to be getting stronger and stronger and having even more of those bonus actions bonus abilities available for you, because you're going to have more crew that you're able to activate each turn. Now, Act 1 and Act 2 are going to look very similar, where players are going to be maneuvering around this main board here, trying to complete these different story missions by paying into them, while they are trying to balance other things, such as keeping their characters out of prison and fighting off against these bosses that are spawning out on the board. But Act 3 is going to be completely different, culminating in a boss battle. So when you are stashing for these different missions, you're going to be placing the things that you're stashing onto this board here for the Toby Roppo. So for example, Ulti here wants 12 weapons, and once you're able to accomplish that, you would block off that you were able to stash exactly what they needed to unlock them, because this is going to give you turns in the final boss battle. Now, when this happens, players are going to completely wipe the board, and all that matters now is going to be the other sides of this board. So you're going to flip these over like this, and this is where your final boss battle is going to be taking place. So you'll place this out like this, and then you'll have your characters all starting here in the starting spot. Now, you are fighting off against Kaido, who will be over here, and that is where you'll have to enter to start fighting off against him, but he's going to have 200 hit points. So that's where you can see that the game is starting off a little bit slower, but it is ending with a bang, where your first enemy is going to have 10 hit points, but you're going to be culminating in this boss battle that is going to be at 200, and not only that, but you also have additional enemies that you're able to face off against during this time as well. So we had Jack, and we have Jack here again as well, where you will slot in their different hit points for all of these, and players are able to branch off and fight against these small side enemies as well, because they're going to do things for you like deal 25 damage to Kaido. So that's going to be a way for you to do a huge chunk of damage, but players are going to primarily be focusing all of their attacks on trying to take out that boss. Now, as I said, for everything that you accomplished, you're going to gain a turn. So for all of those different characters that you were able to stash and unlock, that is going to unlock the number of turns that players have to be able to do this as well. So you can see where the first two missions may seem a little bit passive, where you are maneuvering around the board and you are doing these different things cooperatively, where you are trying to gain things together, but then you're going to have this final Act 3 where you are trying to face off in a fight for your life with this huge boss against you. One Piece Dawn of Liberation is going to give players a strong sense of cooperation, where you're really going to be working together to accomplish these different missions as well as your personal goals. And a lot of the flavor in the game is going to be with your different character abilities that you have, because they are all very unique and you are able to upgrade them with those goals. And going back to that sense of cooperation, you're able to help everyone with their goals that they're trying to do, and you want to, because you want them to be upgraded and as powerful as possible when you're fighting off against that final boss. So helping other players is going to help yourself in the long run as well in a game like this, where it's very good to be supporting other players, and it all just kind of feeds into itself very, very naturally. But a lot of the specialty in the game is going to be with the different powers and abilities that players are going to have. So for Chopper here, for example, his base ability is if you gain one or more samurai, gain an additional samurai. But once he's able to accomplish his personal goal, he flips over. His abilities are a bit stronger, but he also has Monster Point. If you gain one or more samurai, gain an additional samurai, but if a samurai fights a pirate in your region, the pirate is also destroyed. So that's going to be a way for you to have your samurai be a little bit stronger, and you can see where all of these abilities are going to be very unique, where you're going to have all these players working together, hopefully upgrading their different captains to their stronger abilities before you're facing off against this final boss together. So you can check out the link down below for everything that Kesko has planned, and as I noted earlier, if you'd like to see exactly how this game plays, there'll be a gameplay on the channel as well with Alex and I. Thank you all for watching the Board Game Coach channel. I've been Professor Meg, and I will see you all next time. Bye!